It has been a busy few days for our ailing American president. His first big international trip to Europe has been President Biden's big debut on the world stage. And today he was more than 2 hours late for a NATO press conference with no explanation. One would assume there was added preparation time for Biden, as today he actually took questions from the media. We're going to get to that here in just a second. But first, over the weekend, Biden again indicated there was potential coordination maybe between the White House and the media. Take a look at this.
That's how I'm going to handle it. I'm sorry I'm going to get in trouble with staff if I don't do this the right way. Jennifer Jacobs, Bloomberg.
Thank you, sir.
So we've heard this multiple times. Going to get in trouble. Got to do this the right way. How creepy is it that there's an order that he must follow to the questions for the media? Are the questions scripted? Is the press team coordinated with the press? What is that? Whatever it is, the president, at the very least, is clearly being handled by other people. The leader of the most powerful country in the world can't maneuver his way through simple press conferences on his own. He needs constant supervision. On this trip, his wife appears to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
How are your meetings going here in Cornwall?
Very well.
Come on.
They always do.
And they laugh. Everybody just laughs like this is normal for the American president to have his wife just pull him away because he can't answer questions. Aha! You know Vladimir Putin is watching. He's definitely laughing. He's licking his lips. More on this week's big Biden-Putin meeting coming up here in just a minute. But what have we learned from this trip so far? Well, there's going to be another COVID-19 origin investigation. And of course, the feckless leaders of Europe and the United States are letting Dr. Tedros and the World Health Organization handle this one as well. The only reason we need another investigation is because the WHO screwed up the first one so badly. So of course it makes sense they do the second one too, right? Welcome to liberalism. We also watched Europe embrace the return of American gullibility, Biden reaffirming his commitment to NATO, which lets many countries mooch off America's insane military spending. But most importantly, we learned our president just really isn't very capable in this arena. There are several examples. At a roundtable event, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson introduced everybody at the table, including the president of South Africa. Here's our president seconds later.
And the president of South Africa.
And the president of South Africa, as I said earlier.
Oh, you did?
I did not. I certainly did.
But you get to mention it twice, sir.
I mean, he looks like grandpa sitting there at the dinner table with no clue what's going on. That's the president of the United States. Here's how Biden closed out his G7 press conference, answering a question about removing Trump-era sanctions on aluminum and steel against European allies.
When you're having these conversations with European allies who are very concerned about these sanctions, how do you justify that? And what are your plans to change?
120 days. Give me a break. Need time.
Imagine if Trump gave that answer. In this same press conference, he mixed up Syria and Libya 3 times. They're nowhere near each other, and legitimately may not know the difference between the two countries anymore, and that's presuming that he ever did. Of course, the media doesn't like to bring that up. Why would they? Wouldn't want to expose just how clueless the sitting American president is. But let's go back 22 years ago, and Governor of Texas George W. Bush is running for president. A Boston political reporter asking these questions.
Can you name the president of Chechnya?
No, can you?
Can you name the president of Taiwan?
Yeah, Lee. The new Pakistani general has just been elected. He's not elected. This guy took over office. He appears he's going to bring stability to the country, and I think that's good news for the subcontinent.
And you can name him.
General. I can't name the general.
And it's?
General.
Prime Minister of India?
The new Prime Minister of India is, no.
That was when he was the governor of Texas, and he didn't know the answers. Remember how damning that was for George W. Bush? But do you notice a difference? I mean, now we have the sitting American president, and he's overseas. Imagine if Donald Trump had confused Syria and Libya 3 times. They're in different continents. It'd be the top story all night long. But because it's Biden, nobody knows about it. Protect the Democrat, as always, our loyal, state-run, liberal mainstream media. Biden is way over his skis on all this, and everybody knows it. I don't think that needs to be pointed out any longer. But on Wednesday, Biden is going to meet with Vladimir Putin in Switzerland. He can barely handle the feeble leaders of the G7 and in NATO. Biden did a lot of political damage to Donald Trump by casting him as a puppet for Putin, of course. Biden, like most phony politicians, capable of making himself seem much more competent, brave, and virtuous than he really is. He's a known liar. He's a known plagiarist. And in the past few years, he's been telling a story designed to make you think that he's a tough American brand, willing to stand up to the world's dictators. Biden says he told Putin to his face he doesn't think he has a soul. Putin was asked about that. Take a look.
President Biden says, one time when you met, you were inches away from each other. And he said to you, I'm looking in your eyes and I can't see a soul. And you said, we understand each other. Do you remember that exchange?
But I do not remember this particular part of our conversations, to be honest with you. He probably has a good memory.
That's a little knock to the dimension there. Probably has a good memory. You know, he doesn't remember it because it probably never happened, because Biden likes to make up stuff like that to make himself seem tough and good. Asked about those comments in today's press conference, Biden with a very bizarre response, and then he just completely phases out. Let's watch together.
In a weekend interview, Vladimir Putin laughed at the suggestion that you had called him a killer. Is that still your belief, sir, that he is a killer?
To answer the first question, I'm laughing too. They actually, well, look, I mean, he has made clear that the answer is.
In his meeting, his bilateral meeting with Turkish President Erdogan, the American press was actually kicked out before the start of the meeting.
We couldn't hear you, sir.
I didn't say anything.
Thank you, guys. Let's go. Come on, let's go. Come on, guys. Let's move. Let's move. Come on. Thank you. Let's go. Come on. Thank you, guys.
So he lets the Turks kick out the American media and leave in their state-run media that they have in Turkey because they don't have the same freedoms as the United States. Boy, is he tough on dictators. Really tough. Washington Post reporter Ann Rumsey-Guerin, you don't hear them complain too much about Democrats over there, but she tweeted out 1.5 hours and counting outside the room where President Biden is meeting with Turkish leader Erdogan. We were supposed to go in for a picture and remarks at the start. Turkish official media was allowed in. Yep, we have not been. No explanation. Hashtag free press. Can you imagine? Erdogan runs a country that is ranked 153rd out of 180 by the World Press Freedom Index. That means there's essentially no press freedom at all. Freedom of the press, of course, is a cornerstone of American democracy, and Biden is being shown up by a literal dictator, and he just sits there and takes it and says, I didn't say anything. Remember all those times that Trump let the media stay in the room for the entire negotiation, a move that legacy Democrats hated, and to be fair, probably legacy Republicans as well? Pelosi nervously laughing, hating the exposure, hating the American people, getting a look at how the sausage is made. And they call Trump the fascist. That's the funniest thing about all of this. What a clown show all of this is. And then today, Biden parted with the rule that politics ends at the water's edge. He's overseas. Shouldn't be talking about politics. He slammed Republicans and Americans who voted for Donald Trump. Here's part of it.
The Republican Party is vastly diminished in numbers. The leadership of the Republican Party is fractured. And the Trump wing of the party is the bulk of the party, but it makes up a significant minority of the American people.
I can't wait for the friggin' midterms. And if that were even a little bit true, he wouldn't have to cut Republicans out of the negotiations for his infrastructure bill. This is a split country right now, and it's not a minority on the right, that's for sure. This was in response, of course, though, to a question about January 6th, which, of course, had to be brought up even in Europe with all the other stuff going on. It was a total softball question from the same Washington Post reporter who complained about not having access to the Biden-Putin meeting. And here is that hilariously pointless softball question that this woman asked, of all the questions she could ask to Biden, who gives very little access to the media during this very important trip, here is the dumbest softball to Biden you could give. Let's take a listen.
You've said several times that America is back at allies' side, but a lot of those allies are themselves pretty rattled by what happened on January 6th, an attempted overturning of your election.
And she complains about free press. You want to be free press? Then start asking tough questions to Democrats. Quit being such a fake. What a joke. I mean, that just cracked me up. All right, with so much at stake, let's rehash that unarmed insurrection she's talking about, since it was worthy of her only question to Biden on this trip. A couple hundred Trump voters evidently tried to take over the entire country. Did you know that? They were armed with MAGA flags. That'll go well against the American military. An insurrection where more selfies were snapped than windows smashed. The fifth and final reporter to be granted a question today asked if Ukraine would be admitted to NATO. And here, with the best answer of the day, is the father of Hunter Biden.
Well, now that Russia has invaded parts of Ukraine, does that effectively rule out Ukraine ever entering NATO?
The second question is, the answer is no. The first question, it depends on whether they meet the criteria. The fact is they still have to clean up corruption. The fact is they have to meet other criteria to get into the action plan. And so it's, school's out on that question. It remains to be seen.
That's the same guy whose drug-addicted son made $80,000 a month from a Ukrainian gas company despite having no life experience other than operating a crack pipe and hiring escorts. So there you have it. That was funny.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.